Okay, we're going to read the Bible here. I have some handouts that I'm going to give for the school, Lighthouse Christian Academy. Lighthouse, what do we call ourselves? Lighthouse University. So let's read our text this morning, Ezekiel 31, but it flows right into the teaching for today about in Lighthouse University. So Ezekiel 31, the title of it is A Cedar in Lebanon. Now, what do you think a cedar looks like? It looks like an appeal to heaven. It looks like an appeal to heaven. That's what we're studying, an appeal to heaven. It is a type of pine tree, a cedar. And listen to what Ezekiel writes. Just by chance that we're doing this week, just by chance we come across a pine tree. May not sound too spiritual to you, but not every chapter in the Bible and not every book of the Bible has the cedars of Lebanon in it, although they are in it on a number of occasions. But I do believe the inspiration for an appeal to heaven partially came from this particular tree, the cedar of Lebanon. And you'll see how it works through. In the 11th year, in the 3rd month, in the 1st day, the word of the Lord came to me, Son of man, say to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and to his hordes. He said, who can be compared with you in majesty? Consider Assyria, once a cedar in Lebanon, with beautiful branches overshadowing the forest. It towered high, its top above thick foliage. The waters nourished it. Deep springs made it grow tall. Their streams flowed, and all around its base they sent their channels to all the trees of the field. So it towered higher than all the trees of the field. Its boughs increased, and its branches grew long, spreading because of the abundant waters. All the birds of the air nested in its boughs. All the beasts of the field gave birth under its branches. All the great nations lived in its shade. It was majesty in beauty with its spreading boughs. For its roots went down to abundant waters. The cedars in the garden of God could not rival it, nor could the pine trees equal its boughs, nor could the plane trees compare with its branches. No tree in the garden of God could match its beauty. I made it beautiful with abundant branches, the envy of all trees in Eden, in the garden of Eden. Therefore, this is what the sovereign Lord says, because it towered high, lifting its top above the thick foliage, and because it was proud of its height, I handed it over to the rulers of the nations for him to deal with according to its wickedness. I cast it aside, the most ruthless of foreign nations, cut it down and left it. Its boughs fell on the mountains, and in all the valleys. Its branches lay broken in all the ravines of the land. All nations of the earth came out from under its shade and left it. All the birds of the air settled in the fallen tree, and the beasts of the field were among the branches. Therefore, no other trees by the waters are ever to tower proudly on high, lifting their tops above the thick foliage. No other trees so well watered are ever to reach such a height that they are destined for death. The earth below, among mortal men, with all those who go down to the pit. This is what the sovereign Lord says. On the day it was brought down to the grave, I covered the deep springs with mourning for it. I held back its streams, and its abundant waters were restrained. Because of it, I clothed Lebanon with gloom, and all the trees of the field withered away. I made the nations tremble at the sound of its fall. I brought it down to the grave with those who go down to the pit. Then all the trees in Eden, the choicest and best of Lebanon, all the trees that were well watered, were consoled in the earth below. Those who lived in its shade, its allies among the nations, had also gone down to the grave with it, joining those killed by the sword. Which of the trees of Eden can be compared with you in splendor and majesty? Yet you, too, will be brought down with the trees of Eden. To the earth below, you will lie among the uncircumcised with those killed by the sword. This is Pharaoh and all his hordes, declares the sovereign Lord. Well, the thought provoker today for us is, trust in the Lord with all thine heart. Lean not unto thine own understanding. This text helps you avoid a nervous breakdown. It stimulates your recovery. The famous neurologist specialized in nervous breakdowns often prescribes this text for his patients. Dr. Scribner. This is my dad. He writes the words on a card and instructs his patients to commit them to memory and repeat them until they are indelibly printed on their subconscious mind. The words, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own thinking. Indelibly print that on your mind. Trust, say it, trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not on your own fragile, stupid understanding. The cause of much nervous trouble is frustration, and the antidote to frustration is a calm faith, not in your own cleverness or your hard toil, but is in God's guidance. The cure of frustration is belief that God will help you obtain your heart's desire. Be careful what your heart's desire is. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and you'll be able to keep on working in health and happiness for long years to come. Amen. So this morning, we're on this path to the lies of our government, the lies of the devil, the lies of those in our leadership. The book being by Jim DeMint, a very well-known senator, and I'm going to finish up why the lie of white privilege. But in the meantime, I came across this scripture in Ezekiel chapter 31, and I'm going to have the secretary assistant, my right-hand man, Lou, pass out a little something that came to me as I read Ezekiel 31 this morning. It's talking about the illustration of the Lebanon tree, the cedar of Lebanon. How many have ever heard that in the Bible, the Bible talks about the cedar of Lebanon? By the way, there's a college right here, a very well-known college, university. In fact, I was offered a scholarship to play football there at one time. It wasn't a full scholarship because it was in Northern California. They must have known that I was a Christian. They didn't want me to come. And that is the University of Stanford. Stanford is supposedly one of the foremost colleges in our country. They were called, when I played against them, they were the Stanford, what were they before the trees? Indians? But they had to they changed their name to trees. And their trees look like the same as this tree and Appeal to Heaven, which this tree looks very similar to the one that you're holding in your hands right now, the Lebanon tree, the cedar of Lebanon. It is a pine tree, and I saw that, and I made a picture of it for you, and then I also, in my great understanding, knew that today was the day that we were talking about this Ezekiel 31, and it says, highly sought after in Bible times, used in many forms of construction, including the boat that Jesus sailed on Galilee. It was included in pagan worship. It was the symbol of wealth, kingship, and deity, and it is called the Cedar of Lebanon, and it is the illustration that Ezekiel was given by God to show Pharaoh of Egypt that his rule was no more. And the cedar of Lebanon would be the illustration of his downfall. Now, these trees were used for all kinds of things, but they were also used as a way to show the people's wealth and the abilities of their country. And these trees were very important. And he says here, indeed, Assyria was a cedar in Lebanon with fine branches and shaded forests and high in stature, and its top was among the thick boughs. And the waters made it grow. And so God stopped up the waters, he pulled down the trees, and he pulled down the king or the Pharaoh that was so proud of himself. God will bring the proud down. God will show himself strong. No matter what time, not what season, what age, God is still the king of the world. He's not just the king of the United States or the king of Israel, but he is the king of the world. Now, it is interesting that yesterday I heard on the radio, I think it was the day before that he made the decision, is the governor of the state of California decided that he was going to make a curfew. Tonight there's a curfew at 10 o'clock. And this is has to do with the COVID and the people that are suffering from possibly the flu. This is flu season, so people maybe now are getting COVID instead of the flu. But whatever people think, whatever it is, here's what's happened. He has told us that we all have to go by this curfew. This is going to help us to overcome this virus. The one that's made a possibility of probably such a magnanimous solution to this is our President Donald Trump, who has went on warp speed to get a vaccine. And that vaccine is now starting to be distributed, and that will probably, help some people feel a little bit better about the COVID. I'm not one of those that are real big on vaccines. But at the same time, this man says, You don't, like at 10 o'clock at night, you can't go out because that's when you're going to get the COVID. So the police department of the county of Los Angeles and some others said, we are not going to enforce the law.
Amen. Yes, amen.
I said, why'd you have to say that? Why'd you have to say that? I mean, they could just not do it, right? They haven't been doing it for quite a bit of time now. You see, what we're talking about is an appeal to heaven. Here's what John Locke said. Here's when he said, the people have no other remedy in this, as in other cases where they have no judge on earth, but to appeal to heaven. For the rulers, in such attempts, exercising a power the people never put in their hands. We never gave Gruesome Newsom the power to shut us up in our homes. He does not have that power. And so the police department says, you don't have that power. You can't tell us to do that. What's going on? When do these guys get out of our way? Come on. And you'll talk to people, and I've talked to people. I say, I don't want to have anything to do with politics. I just want to live. Well, listen to me. You can't just do that. You have to take responsibility. Take responsibility for this. So, I was pretty interested in that. Now, one of the other lies is about this climate change thing. And the cedar of Lebanon is a tree. And that's one of the most interesting things about this climate change thing. Because these trees grow because God planted the trees. God plants the trees. God grows the trees. You don't go out there and plant trees all over the countryside. They're growing by God's own way. And when God stops the rain, he stops the rain. When he wants rain, he makes the rain. There is a God in heaven. And you cannot control that God. And the trees of Lebanon were a symbol in Pharaoh's time. He dried up the land. And so these trees were not being used. And it was a sign to say to Pharaoh, I'm going to take you down just like I stopped the blessing that I had for you. Now you're serving other gods, and you are not going to prosper. And God used the enemies of Pharaoh to destroy him. And we have not seen him, the Pharaoh, rise up again. So why the lie? Why the lie of this other aspect that we were talking about this week of white privilege? Why? I've talked about it that really there is no such thing as white privilege. It's basically the ability that each individual has and they use in their relationship to society with the power of God to become who they are. But at the same time, if you can scare people or if you can keep people in your political force by telling them that somebody else is doing something to them, then that's going to be helpful to them to stay in power. But what have they done by staying in power is just keeping them down so that they don't feel like they can rise up. And it's the white that are doing that to them. So let's listen to some teaching on this. The major reason for this victimology that the Democratic Party is putting on blacks is because they want their vote. It's not too difficult. Why do they want immigration coming from other places? They believe that they will get the vote for by those immigrants. Why do they want Puerto Rico to be a state? Why do they want Washington, D.C. to be? It's not that they care about the people. They just want the votes. They want the power. It's simple. It's not that difficult to understand. And you say, well, yeah, I don't know about all that politics and everything like that. I don't want to get involved in politics. Well, what you're doing is you're leaving the next generations in a whole pot of mess. Because the enemy to your soul wants to rule over you. The major reason is in order to portray blacks as victims. You're victims of whites. This achieves two huge goals for the left. One political, the other philosophical. The political goal is to ensure that blacks continue to view America as bad and racist. The left knows that the only way to retain political power in America is to perpetuate the belief among black Americans that their primary problem is white racism. Only then will blacks continue to regard the left and Democrats as indispensable. And by the way, all the statistics, even in the last 4 years with the President Trump, the laws of black people being incarcerated was challenged by Trump, not by the Obama administration, but by Donald Trump. Donald Trump, these black universities asking for money, asking for it for years when Obama was in power, gives them nothing, very little. Immediately, Donald Trump gives them huge amounts of money. The unemployment went to the lowest ever while Donald Trump was in power. And so what we see here is the exact opposite by facts. But they'll still say the same thing. And there'll be a lot of people that will just say, that's politics. I don't want to deal with it. The philosophical reason is that the left denies, as it has since Marx, the primacy of moral and cultural values in determining the fate of the individual and of society. In other words, these cultural and moral values determine what's going to happen in the society. In the left's view, it is not poor values or a lack of moral control that causes crime, but poverty. Did you get that? Okay, let's read it again. He says the fate of the individual in society, we're talking about what's going to happen to the people in the various ethnicities or in just America, just they're an American. And because we're all Heinz variety for the most part. We're not a particular ethnicity. You have to say it that way because if you say we are different races, then the only thing that race is defined as is human race. It's not the African race or the Indian race or the Scottish race or come on. It's the human race. It's not an ethnicity. We're all humans. And if you say there's different races, and some races better than others, then you're the racist. And even bringing the whole thing up causes it to be more of a problem than it does a solution. That's been the truth for a long, long time. So, what does make up the culture? Why do they do the things that they do? Well, Marx says the primacy of moral and cultural values in determining the fate of the individual and society is their birth. They're saying this is what it is. Because they are this way, they will be this way. In the left's view, it is not poor values or a lack of moral self-control that causes crime, which he's saying that it doesn't matter if you have a father and a mother, or if they're alcoholics, or that they're stealing and everything. That doesn't have anything to do. It's just that they're poor. Therefore, the disproportionate amount of violent crime committed by black males is not attributable to moral failure of their parents, of the way they've been brought up. That's not what it is. It's of the black criminal, or to the likelihood of his not having been raised by a father, but to the external factor over which he has little or no power, called white racism. Then how do you explain all of these tremendous scientists, tremendous political leaders in the black community? How do you describe them? Oh, they just lucked out. Walter Whitman. I can go through hundreds of them. I mean, I understand. All the black people that are here, they worked hard. They had fathers. They had a family. They believed in God. White privilege serves the same original sin purpose as climate change. It's a pervasive, universal reality that no one can ever be redeemed through their own merits. In other words, this can't happen. They cannot become great people unless the government gives them money. Or you put us in power and we will take care of you. Is that really what makes somebody a hard worker? Not having to work and giving them money? Has that ever helped you? It's a pervasive, universal reality that no one can ever be redeemed through their own merits. That's what they're trying to tell us. Redemption can only be gained through ministrations of one true faith of our elite institutional establishment, the progressive politicals. In other words, government will save you. These elites use white privilege lie as an ubiquitous, dishonest accusation of racism against the political opponents to preserve and to grow their power. And it works. Governments grow larger and larger every year. Are you going to deny that what you're saying is, we're going to give you everything that you want? We're going to put you through school, and you don't have to really be very good at it, and we're going to give you jobs, and we're going to do all of these things. And for decades, that has not worked. Just they're the same. Everybody is the same. They have the ability to put their hope in a God, or they have the ability to have morals. Yes, morals. Biblical morals, families. These are the people that by the numbers, they turn into people that care about one another. They work hard. They have duty as a focus of their life. I have a duty to my children, to my wife, to my family, to my community, to my nation. We have a duty, and we work hard. And that is true, very true, in the black community. In reality, white privilege is a made-up excuse to distract people from the fact the promised benefits of progressive government never actually arrive. The only people benefiting from white privilege are the rich, mostly white, progressive elites who cooked up the whole idea. How many houses does our new said-to-be president, which is totally a lie and a farce and a takeover, how many houses does Biden have? I think it's five or 4 or 5, 6. How did he get all that money? For 40 some odd years, he's been in politics. What's he done? Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing to help the black people. He's done nothing except for buy houses, give money to his son, Hunter, who is a drug addict, and also involved in what do they call that? No, the women thing. I mean, all kinds of things, all kinds of bad things. Why aren't you more upset about this? Why aren't you more upset? Oh, we're going to let God do it. Well, God says you got to stop worshiping yourself. Worship me. Help my people. African-American writer John McWhorter attacked the dehumanizing, condescending of white fragility, both the book by Robin DiAngelo and the premise itself. In other words, this very competent African-American writer attacks what he calls a dehumanizing of his ethnicity, being black. This is a man who really believes that there's a white privilege. The black man says, no, there's not. And don't you write about it because it dehumanizes black people. How would you like it? I'm a white person. I'm proud of being white. What else am I going to do about it? I'm white. You know, my relatives, by the way, put people in wicker trees, or made a wicker thing, and set them on fire. So if you want me to go back to that, crazy. You know, the Scots, when they fought in battle, they fought naked. And if they thought they were going to lose, they killed each other. That's part of my ethnicity. And I'm part Jew too, so I'm really mixed up. The blacks are more, if you will, 100% than a lot of these white people. We are the ones that need the privilege. The blacks have all the privilege. They're more pure. This is what he's saying. He's saying, he's not saying it that way, but he's saying it this. Why are you dehumanizing black people by saying white people have privilege? It's the same privilege. The privilege is Jesus Christ, who came into this world to set us free from the bondages of these people that make up all these goofy things. It's been going on for a long time. Whether it be the Pharaoh of Egypt, or it be the leader of any nation, Adolf Hitler, whoever it could be. But I can tell you this, that today, even in Africa, there's still slavery. And the ones that have come to America are it's not America that did it, it's Jesus Christ. That was the moral foundation of the country. Before that, it wasn't like that. It's not like this particular part of the land was more godly than any other. The Indians were here. Many of the Indians accepted Christ. Many of them today. So this man, DiAngelo, it says, despite the sincere intention of the author, the book diminishes black people, this DiAngelo, diminishes black people in the name of dignifying us. Few books have more open, this is what the black writer, John McWhorter, said. Despite the sincere intention of its author, he's being nice to him. The book diminishes black people in the name of dignifying us. Few books have more openly infantilized black people than this supposedly authoritative tomb. I can't even use the words that the man writes. This is a sincere, honest, intelligent, black author, and he's saying this guy has maybe good intentions, but he infantilizes. In other words, he takes away. He's in a fantasy of what he's talking about, supposedly to be really the truth. D'Angelo's outlook rests upon the depiction of black people as endlessly delicate poster children within this self-gratifying fantasy about how America needs to think. I don't even know if the writer D'Angelo can understand what he just said in that sentence. D'Angelo's outlook rests upon the depiction of black people as endlessly, in other words, they can't overcome this fantasy as this endlessly delicate poster children within its self-gratifying fantasy about how America thinks. He's saying this to us as a people that, you know something? They can't get out of their own way. The blacks can't get out of their own way because, they're the poster children for the Democratic Party. We will take care of you. Well, did they when Obama was president? Did they? This is a lie. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about lies. How America needs to think. We need to think this way. We need to think this way that, we need to take care of them. No, they're taking care of us. They're rising up. Candace Owens, she's rising up. I'll vote for her. She's a lot smarter than I am. I wish I had some of her black privilege with her brain. I mean, she speaks it. Larry Elder, he speaks it. And you can go on and on and on. But McWhorter's saying it pretty clearly right here. It's a self-gratifying to these white people fantasy about how America needs to think. Or better, stop thinking. He wants you to stop thinking that way. Her answer to white fragility, in other words, entails an elaborate and pitilessly dehumanizing, condescending toward black people. I'll tell you something. I've competed with black people on the athletic field, and they don't need any more privilege. They're tough. They can fight. They're smart. They can think, just like I can think. I might not be able to think as well as... Listen, we're human beings. Work at it. Don't just give them something. Don't just give me something. Make me work. Almost every American today. Why do you think I'm doing this? Almost every American today of every race does indeed judge their neighbor by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. Success is available to all Americans. It is also difficult to attain and always extremely fragile. It's not easy, but it's easier today in the United States than it has been at any other time in our place in history of mankind. Opportunities expand for everyone when we have lots of choices and friends and schools and jobs and places to live, entertainment, food, and clothes. And we believe and say, the more choices, the more freedom, and the more freedom, the more opportunity for everyone. You know, I grew up, college, I grew up with not just white people, but black people, Asian people, Indians, and grew up with them. Most of the time, it was in athletic endeavors. How would you like to play rugby against a Samoan that weighs 250 pounds, huge, has tremendous ability? I felt a little bit fragile. Listen, in every person there is a great deal of privilege that God's given them. God's given people the ability to do things. Just even by your physical structure and what you can do. Who is an artist that doesn't want to be involved in mathematics not privileged? The artist might make something beautiful. The mathematician might work it out for them. Listen, we are all made by a God that gives us abilities. We can't do everything. We are not God. Wake up. You can't just provide one thing for everybody. This Marxist idea of everybody is the same is a lie from the pit of hell. We're not all the same. I like to, if you don't get it, get this. There's some people that are 7 feet tall. They wouldn't make good plumbers underneath the house. There's some people that are 5'1". They'd make great plumbers because they can get under the house. How would you like to be a ballerina at 7'5"? We go to the theater, and when you see in the theater and you see people, they can do incredible things with their body, or in the circus or whatever. They were made that way. Oh, they don't have the privilege of being 7'5" or whatever. Listen to me. You're listening to a one-fits-all mentality, and they're going to shape everybody into the same thing. That's what Marxist thinking is. And that's what puts, okay, all black people, they can't, it's not, they need help. They need help. Everybody needs help. But the help that we get is to work. And when we work, we help. Just like I'm speaking to you right now, don't just fold your hands and do nothing. Just start working. Now, you may work at something that you don't really seem to like, or you don't have the ability to. Find what God gave you the ability to do. And you know, by the way, this thing isn't going to last as long as you think. It's called life. It doesn't last long. It doesn't last long. I'm 69. I'm going to say this again. I have 8 children. 8 of them are married. That means I have 16 children. Because the ones that get married to my children, they think they're my children too. They want inheritance. They're not going to walk away from that. So that's 16. This year, 2020, they have given us 20 grandchildren. It's not going to stop there. Some of them haven't even started making babies yet. They'll figure it out. The point I'm making to you is this. I was in this church just a few years ago, I think, with the first one. With the very first one. It seems like just a few days ago. Now he's 40. Let's see, that was 75, so that's 40, 45, 46 years old this coming year. No, 45 years old. Wow. 45 years. You know how fast that went by? Hello, goodbye. That's it. It goes by quick. And you know what? If you're going to listen to Marx, you can be like everybody else. You can line up in lines. You can have food lines. You can have get your health lines, and you can do it all that. But that's not the way God created you. He created you to be different. You have your own DNA. There's nobody like you. Nobody. And so what the Bible teaches is, and what Jesus Christ taught us is this, that at this very time in history, God is preparing to bring all the people to himself. And, of course, they've been saying this for years. They were saying it when I was a kid. But there's going to be a great outpouring of God's Spirit of love for one another, loving each other, taking care of each other. Government can't do that. It's going backwards when you do that. We take care of each other. The church decided a long time ago to let government do that in our country. that was a big moral failure. As you listen to me today, I'd like you to ask yourself, am I part of the solution, or am I part of the problem? Just leave me alone. All I care about is me. Just leave me alone, and I'll be okay. Well, that's part of the problem. The solution is, I want to do something for other people. I want to help people. Jesus said, I didn't come into the world to destroy it. I came to save it. Seek and save the lost. How do you help people? Help them to be all they can be. They don't have to be like you, gruesome. They don't have to be like you. Let them be. Listen, even in this lockdown, even in this sickness, there's been sicknesses, Black Plague, other sicknesses we've had. But you know what? If you're sick, stay home. If you're worried about getting sick, stay home. You won't get sick if you stay home. But if you want to go out and take a chance in life, watch what you do. If you're sick, stay home. But go to work. Do something. Or maybe you can even do it in your own house. Maybe you can make something in your own house of yourself. That's what maybe God helped you to do. We'll continue on the next lie, which will come up on Monday. And I am not going to teach this particular lie because I think it would be it would not taken in a proper way. So I'm going to try to find somebody to do it for me on Monday. So God bless you, and I hope you come to church tomorrow. Because you know something? The Bible says, and God said, do not forsake the Sabbath day. Do not forsake that. Go to church. And you know something? That is something that saves you. God bless you, and have a wonderful day.